I'm joined now by someone who worked on the very first episode of Doctor Who when it came back in 2005. And since then, she's played a number of monster parts, but more recently has moved behind the camera. So I would like to introduce makeup artist and monster performer, Ellen Thomas. How are you?
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Not bad, thanks. And you're sort of making the most of all these rather strange times?
Yeah, enjoying the laziness, to be fair.
Yes, it's nice to be able to sit back and enjoy it for once rather than be up early on set.
Yeah, nice to have time to actually be creative, and I've sort of built up a little home studio and I've been buying loads of equipment. Probably shouldn't have been buying equipment, but I have been. So got myself like a little mixing desk and I bought some new speakers and stuff. So yeah, indulging in fun stuff to do at home.
Because it's worth saying that sort of beyond your television work, you're also a singer and songwriter. Where did that come from?
I think that's my first passion. I remember singing sort of in national Eisteddfods and stuff from a young age. I'm Welsh, isn't it? So we all sing. It's it's everyone Welsh's pastime.
Yeah, rugby and singing, it's sort of ingrained in the Welsh, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and our love of sheep.
So I wanted to take you back to 2005 when Doctor Who was coming back. Was there particularly a buzz in Cardiff that it was happening?
Yeah, I mean, it was all very sort of secretive. When I went to get an interview with an agent, and they gave me and they just had an email basically through saying that they were starting a new show, but it was, nobody knew what the show was. So we went along for the interview not knowing what the show was, and then got told when we got to the interview that it was going to be for Doctor Who. So yeah, I think from then on, everyone was like, "Oh my God, Doctor Who's coming back, and it's going to be filmed in Cardiff." Yeah, it was big for Cardiff, wasn't it? Yeah, it's sort of where all the sort of big sort of TV stuff started then coming to Cardiff. Like there wasn't a lot around this area then when it first started. So I think it's actually it's put Cardiff on the map as like a filming place, if that makes sense.
No, certainly. It did show what Wales could do, I think. But had you been in TV before, or was this sort of your first foray into it?
I wasn't long out of university. I'd done a couple of sort of BBC promos and just little sort of Welsh drama things, but nothing that was like Doctor Who,
So that first episode, you were one of the Autons, which I can't have been the easiest costume to wear. Had you done anything like that before?
So part of our remit was, had you done any sort of stuff in costumes before? And when I was a fair bit younger, we had a little festival in our hometown, and I dressed up as Fireman Sam. So I had the big Fireman Sam costumes. I was like, yeah, I'll nail this one. I've been Fireman Sam, so I'm good. And then obviously we needed to be dance trained as well, and I'd done sort of 5 years of dance training. So that was sort of easy then, I guess.
So was it quite a lengthy audition process then? Did you have to go through various stages, like sort of boot camp?
Yeah, a little bit. We had to sort of go through the movements and be choreographed, and yeah, it was. I think we had about 2 or 3 days before then we went through.
Because you would have done the scenes outside what is a shopping centre in Cardiff, where you had gunshots going off, fire. It must have been a very complicated shoot to then be encompassed in the sort of Auton mask.
Yeah, it was a complicated shoot, and I think there were some health and safety issues that were flagged at the time as well. But yeah, it was the Auton mask. I think was I don't know. Basically, we had thick rubber masks that were slit down the back, so then they were taped onto our heads. We had 3 breathing holes under our chin there, and then 5 pinpricks for eye holes, because they wanted obviously it to look like a solid plastic face. So we didn't really that was literally what we had. Like, some people passed out. I did have claustrophobia before I went forward for the role, and it sort of quickly got me out of my fear of claustrophobia, because you're sort of taped into this rubber mask. You're like, breathe. So I was all right then.
So after that first sort of monster part, it didn't put you off then for life. You're quite happy to do more of that work.
Yeah. I mean, I think every time I did one, I was like, I'm never doing that again. And then I get the phone call. I've got, oh yeah, okay, I'm coming.
Because in fact,
Oh,
your
yeah.
next encounter with Doctor Who was sort of as yourself, really playing a Victorian theatre member. Was that quite nice to get your face on screen for a change?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of my face we actually saw on screen. It was probably just a sweep by, but it was really nice to get dressed up because it was the first time I'd done like a period sort of thing as me as well, you know. So I had my hair done and dressed up and corsets and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and it was nice being involved in it all because it was in the new theatre, which is a beautiful theatre anyway, and just seeing everybody dressed up. It was my first sort of encounter with any kind of big period sort of piece, really. So it was nice.
So are those days when you've got lots of essays in period makeup and costume, are they more fun than being encompassed in all this prosthetics and paint?
No, I think they both bring their own fun to it. I think it's any amount of dressing up is always going to be fun. I think. Do you mean it? Either prosthetics or period, but I think modern day is a bit more like modern day where I just get to go on as myself. So I think yeah, the dressing up is always good part of the fun, especially with monster work and stuff as well.
So is that where the interest in makeup began? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was doing the Weeping Angels because it was a 6-hour makeup process. So I'd have to turn up to work at silly o'clock in the morning and then just sit there and so they'd have to paint up all my arms because I just had a foam latex kind of top suit and skirt. So they'd paint up all my neck or on my arms. I'd have to have a bald cap and then another cap. Well, my face then would be glued on and then a cap over the top, but then everything else is painted. And they have to paint it to match what's already painted on. So it was a mix of, it's called Pax paint. So it's a mix of like a glue and paint. And then it would be airbrushed and flicked. And like, I mean, the work was amazing. It was incredible work. Like, and it was just mesmerizing just watching them do it. So it did make me kind of go, right, yeah, I always loved playing with hair and makeup anyway as a kid. My friends would always get me to do their hair before I went out and stuff. But yeah, just seeing masters at work then was awesome.
Okay, they are statues, but would you have had sort of movement sessions, or were you very much sort of just left to get on with it?
They weren't necessarily movement sessions, but you were made to sort of hold a pose for quite a long time. So again, we needed to be dance trained. There was only me and one other lady, Aga, who played the original two Weeping Angels. And we were both dance trained, and we'd both been Clockwork women as well. So yeah, it was more like they put a bicycle seat in the skirt because when the mask went on, they then put caps over our eyes for when we could shoot, and you can't see through the caps. And I don't know if you've ever tried standing still with your eyes closed. You end up sort of rocking around quite a lot. So they've managed to sort of put a plinth with a bicycle seat attached to it inside the skirt. So then we'd step into the skirt. They placed the skirt where they wanted us. We'd step into the skirt and be able to sit on this bicycle seat and then hold whatever pose we'd need to hold for the duration of that shot.
Because that story, Blink, is still very well known and loved story. At the time, did it feel like a particularly interesting production or character?
I remember sort of me and my friend, like, because obviously we'd go in first thing in the morning and we'd be made up, and then everybody else would come in and just see these two freaky things walking around. Nobody would talk to us at lunchtime. Nobody'd even look us in the face. It was literally only the guys that had done it in the morning were the only ones that could look at us in the face. So you kind of had that sort of inner knowing that, like, I'm freaking people out just standing in the dinner queue. Like, of course, this is going to freak people out now. Yeah, it was fun.
So being the other side and doing the makeup for it, is it quite nice to know that your work can have that effect on people? That you say these are normal people, but because of what you've done, you've turned them into something else.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really nice to see the transformation as well. So you get somebody kind of coming in a bit sort of tired in the morning, all sleepy looking, and then, you know, by the time they're leaving, they're in their character. And it's the process that the makeup and the hair is all part of the process of getting them in their character as well. So yeah, and it's nice as well because I've been on the receiving end of probably one of the worst makeups. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it was a 2-hour process to take the whole thing off at the end of the night as well. So knowing then I'm a lot more maybe gentle or careful because I know what it would be like to be on the receiving end. I'm not saying that other people aren't gentle and careful. I'm sure they all are, but you know, it's nice to sort of play both sides so that I'm much more aware of both sides of it.
Because I assume that's an experience that few in makeup have. There can't be many people that have made that transition like yourself.
I don't think there's many. There's some, I know some of the prosthetics artists also sometimes play monsters, just as a crossover because they work within that sort of area, and a lot of sort of, I think Millennium Effects do hire out monsters to shows and stuff like that. So then they use some of their own artists as the monsters. So, but I think from a more makeup artist point of view, possibly not quite so many have made the sort of transition.
And your makeup work brought you sort of back into contact with the worlds of Doctor Who, as you did all of the crowd work on Class. Did that feel like the same production, or was it totally different?
No, it felt different to me, to be honest. I suppose because it was in a school setting as well. It was, yeah. I mean, there was elements of it that definitely was like, oh, this is quite Doctor Who-y. But otherwise, it didn't. While filming it, it didn't feel as Doctor Who-y.
Because of course that was modern day, set in a school. So that I imagine wasn't perhaps the most challenging production to work on.
No, not at all. No, it was nice to be involved, but yeah, I mean, we had the big ball scene, which was quite a nice scene for us to do. But otherwise, it was mainly just keeping on top of, well, kids looking like kids. Because a lot of the time they can't actually hire kids either because of filming hours and stuff like that. So they're hiring people in their 20s. So we're having to make them look like kids more. Do you know what I mean?
But it's worth saying that your makeup work, you've done all sorts of present day, periods. I imagine those period shoots are more interesting because there's a greater range of things to do.
Yeah, definitely. I love period and prosthetics work. I did a really good show over the summer. I was working on oh, hang on, I've forgotten the name now. Of course I have. I'll come back to it. But yeah, there was a lot of prosthetics work, and you know, we were putting horns on people and making people's skin look different and sort of bringing sort of alien vibes and stuff. I love that sort of thing, and I've worked on The Crown, and I've worked on a new Netflix series called Bridgerton, which are both big period dramas. And, you know, again, working on anything like that's a privilege, really, but it's amazing hair work, and I love it all, really.
So working in crowd, of course, you have a conversation with the overall hair and makeup designer, but are you very much sort of, this is the mood board and left to get on with it? How does that relationship work?
Different people work in different ways. So normally the designer has a crowd hair and makeup head. So then the designer would discuss with the head of crowd what sort of thing they'd be looking for, possibly give mood boards. Then it would be the crowd supervisor's role then to find a team, and you know, the hope is that they've already done some sort of mood board. Sometimes we go in and there's nothing, and you're just sort of told, right, it's 80s, go. And you're like, oh, okay. And then other times you go in and, you know, the person comes to you and they've already got a sheet and there's, you know, a step-by-step guide of everything you need to do to them. And then other time they'll just be pictures up on the wall, and you'll go in but every job is different, and you never quite know what you're going to get when you go into a job. And that's kind of part of the excitement of it, actually. And I love it all for its creativity and its problem solving, and it's just, yeah, it's exciting.
So with something like Poldark that you've done a lot of, how do you balance the desire for the authenticity of the period, but with that sort of television look? Because of course, you know, it has to be authentic, but people still have to be recognizable, or you know, you can suppose push it a little bit?
We do try and go more sort of on the authentic side. I think just because it's TV anyway, that sort of look gives it a more TV look. Do you know what I mean? If it was filmed on film, it would probably look even more authentic. But I think from our point of view, making the people in the first place, we try and make them look as authentic as possible. And then sometimes they do or don't translate well on screen, I guess.
Because it's worth saying that once we've done the makeup in the mornings, you then have to be on set for that continuity, which I imagine you're looking after a whole group of people at once. That must be a very long and demanding day.
So it works different on different shows again. So some of the bigger shows, when you've got 200 or 300 makeup artists going in, which I've done a few of, like we worked on Will, which was a big sort of production, and we were having 500 essays through in a day, and there was 40 odd makeup artists, and then we'd sort of share it, so you might have 10 people going up to set for sort of 3 hours, and then that 10, because once everybody's set in the morning, the hope is that there's not a hell of a lot of upkeep if you've done your job well in the morning. Sometimes there's always going to be upkeep because of the nature of the hairstyle or the makeup or whatever, so sometimes somebody's skin is more oily and then the beard's always going to come off. There's always little bits and bobs that we just have to keep an eye on. But then sometimes on the smaller shows, then if there's only a couple of crowd makeup artists, then we would be on set then all day with the crowd. So it depends.
And you mentioned you have contact with people that do the prosthetic side of things. Is that something that you're keen to move more into? To say you've done a bit already.
I think my worry with the prosthetic side of stuff is it's a lot more in a sort of workshop environment. So it's a lot more dealing with chemicals and stuff like that, and a lot more workshop environment. Whereas I prefer the crowd makeup stuff, because you're there, you're sort of in with the buzz of it all, and I don't know. Yeah, I prefer that side of it. I'm not saying I wouldn't do more prosthetic stuff, but it's not something that I've got hankering to do.
And a lot of your work has been in the Southwest, in Wales. Do you think it has a particular sort of voice or way of working, or how different is it to working elsewhere?
I haven't noticed much difference, to be honest. I've worked on some London productions and then a lot of Wales and West. I suppose every production varies depending on how much money the production has, really, isn't it? Do you mean you're going to have like a Netflix drama in Wales? I haven't, depending on, it all depends how big the thing is, how small. Yeah, they're all different. I don't notice a specific difference between Wales and West and other areas.
If you had to choose one production that was perhaps the most enjoyable or the most challenging, is there one?
I've worked on so many productions in so many different capacities. It's so difficult to kind of go, oh, it's that one. So, I think they've all brought amazing experiences to my life that I'm thankful for good and bad. So, no, obviously it was an amazing thing to be a part of Doctor Who, and to sort of go through a few different seasons of it. That was enjoyable for me, because I got to see the growth of it as well, and how it changed from season one to when I sort of finished doing it in season 3 or 4. So it's nice. That was obviously something that will stay with me, but otherwise, no, I've really enjoyed all the different productions, but for various different reasons.
But do you find, you obviously moved away from the creature stuff, does that still come back, and do people still go, oh, you were an Auton or an angel? Does that still sort of haunt you?
Not really haunt me. I do go to some Comic-Cons and stuff like that. So, if it haunts me, it's completely my own fault. No, I like it, to be fair. I didn't do anything. For years, I sort of sat at home and kind of wondered, why aren't I being asked to do any Comic-Cons? And then I realised, oh, you have to ask to do them. So I was like, oh, okay. So then I started going out. But it's really nice, actually. I'm enjoying going out, meeting people, and sort of just chatting about it. I love meeting people anyway. It's exciting to meet new people.
So do you find you've perhaps reconnected with some of those people you were doing Doctor Who with, 10 years ago then, through doing the events?
I haven't really seen many. Well, actually, there's been a couple, but not as many as I thought, because they probably did the circuit sort of much sooner before me. Do you mean so that? Yeah, I was just late to the game, really. But I'm pretty much late to every game, so it's all good.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to meet you at an event soon. But I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time, Ellen. It's been great to talk to you, not only about your monster work, but also a little about your makeup as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.